Hi, this is James, the Greenville Financial Empowerment Center, and the Greenville County Library System, here to talk to you about leasing versus buying. Now, there are multiple things that you can lease versus purchasing, so let's talk about the most common array that we see. Now, whenever you lease something, you're not really ever going to own it. Leasing is a system where you are paying to utilize something until it's time to return it, generally to swap it out for something newer. Now, one of the most common items that we see leased are phones or cell phones. Thing about leasing phones is that whenever you lease a phone, you pay for a new phone essentially forever. Now, a lot of folks want the newest iPhone or whatever's coming out, and they lease it so that at the end of each year, they swap out for a new one. But it's kind of an endless payment system. Now, sometimes there are good reasons to lease a phone. Some jobs, particularly in the tech industry, require someone to have the newest technology, the newest phone. So if you're in one of those industries, it may be worth it. Now, if you're thinking about not leasing a phone, there are a lot of reasons not to. One of them being that it is an infinite payment system. You don't ever actually own the phone. At the end of the payment system, you can't keep the phone until it breaks and then resell it. If you do wind up breaking it, there are generally replacement fees on top of the leasing contract that make it more expensive. And in addition to that, you are stuck on a contract for the phone. So whenever it comes to phones, generally buying is better than leasing. Cars, you regularly see folks with leased cars and newer cars. One of the big hooks to get people to get a leased car is the fact that the monthly payments are lower. They're quite a bit lower too. But there are a lot of things that make that not as great of a deal. If you're leasing a car, at the end of the lease, you return it to the dealership. Now, whenever you return it, they do a really detailed inspection to try to see if they can charge you any additional fees upon return. So they're very tricky with that. Now, also, whenever you're leasing a car, you don't have any equity building up. Equity is what you've paid into something, the value at which you own. So at the end of your lease, you're not able to return it to receive money back to make another lease or purchase. And equity is a really big deal, because if you're not building equity, then you're just losing money. Then there's nothing that you're recouping. So if you lease cars and you go constantly for leasing cars, you're always going to have a car payment. Even though it is a smaller car payment over your lifetime and the lifetime of your vehicles, it really adds up. And the strict contract requirements, it's really easy to go over the mileage limit, to go over the usage limit on cars. So generally speaking, with cars, it is better to purchase rather than lease. Now, another exception may be if you're older and it's going to be, the last car you own or something of that nature, or if you have the excess income to where you need to have something nicer, or you're in sales. But generally speaking, leasing vehicles is not the best option. Now, the next item are houses. A lot of people lease houses. A lot of folks call it renting houses. The difference between leasing and renting is a month-to-month situation. Leasing is where you're on that 12-month contract. So a lot of the time for leasing, the term rent is used. Now, there are good reasons to lease or rent a house. One of them being mobility. If you're not sure you want to stay in an area, if you're not sure that it's where you want to live forever, you might want to rent to get to know an area, or to be able to have that mobility to up and leave. If your job situation is not a permanent situation, that may be another reason to rent or lease. Now, another great thing about renting or leasing with a home is a lack of responsibility. If you own a home and your water heater bursts, you have to pay to repair that. If you rent a home and the water heater bursts, then you call your landlord and they have it fixed. So that can be a good reason to rent. Now, generally speaking, ownership of homes is the goal. There are a lot of reasons to actually buy. One is equity. Long-term equity. If you buy a house for $100,000 over a 30-year payment history, at the end of that payment cycle, at the end of that 30 years, the house is yours. It is yours, and you can sell it. Or if you pass away, you can leave it to your heirs to do as they please. Equity is really how wealth transfers from generation to generation. Home ownership really is the American dream and one of the larger goals of the Financial Empowerment Center. Also, with ownership of a home, there's customizability. You can paint the house, you can add additions, you can do whatever you please that you might be limited on if you are renting. And there's also consistency of payment. If you're renting or leasing a home, your rent can go up every year, and they generally do go up every year. Whereas with the mortgage, on most fixed mortgages, you're paying the same set amount every month for the entirety of the mortgage. So it's easier to have a long-term plan on it. And in most situations, the mortgage doesn't continuously rise on you as the rent does. While there are valid reasons to lease homes, we generally advise to purchase one when you are able. In conclusion, buying is better most of the time. There are benefits to leasing if you're in certain industries, if you are looking to be highly mobile, or if you have the excess income. But generally, purchasing is the best move. And if you are going to lease, make sure you read the contract. On return of leasing phones, of cars, things of that nature, they do a strict inspection, and they can ding you and charge you fees. And it can really cost you more in the long run in that you are not building equity. Now, if you do ever have questions or issues with housing or with any financial situation, the Greenville County Human Relations Commission has a series of services that are available to help you. We have our Financial Empowerment Center, which offers no-cost financial counseling. We focus on building assets, reducing debt, building credit, and helping to budget. There's reverse mortgage counseling if you do own a home. There's foreclosure prevention counseling. There's landlord-tenant disputes, fair housing discrimination issues, home buyer education, and rapid rehousing for those experiencing homelessness. So if you ever have any questions or would like to set up an appointment, please call us at 864-467-7503, or you can schedule an appointment at www.greenvillefec.com. This is James with the Greenville Financial Empowerment Center in the Greenville County Library System. Thank you very much and have a nice day.